This week you're going to be starting paper number 4, which is an argument. So that's essentially the last paper you're going to be writing this quarter. And chapter 24 is all about argument. So it will help you get the basic idea of what an argument is and how to write an effective one. So first, you need to know what the purpose of an argument is. Very basically, it's to convince or persuade your audience to agree with you. So you can't just present general information. You need to take a stance on a position. You have to take a position on the topic that you're writing about, and that's the major difference between the other from the other types of writing that you've done this quarter. You're now taking a stance, and all the support and details that you give have to support that stance. So that's a very general purpose of argument. But each argument that you write is different in the specific kind of purpose that you are trying to achieve. So you could be proposing a solution, you could be challenging a common belief, or you could be providing awareness or insight about something like an article or a commercial or an image, something like that. But with all of these, you still have to have a stance, and you still have to support that stance and not waver from that stance. Excuse me. And as you can see by my last note, not all argument is really aggressive. It's not all in your face and just mean. It can be really subtle. Like when you analyze something, you still have to argue for the point you're trying to make. But it's not like you're out to win something. You're just saying, this is what I think and here's why. And that's still considered an argument because you're taking a stance and you have to support it through details and evidence. So what makes an argument effective? The first thing is that you need to be aware of your audience. Who are you writing to? Are you writing to a group of people that already agree with you? Are you writing to a group of people that highly disagree with you? Are you writing to people who are unaware of whatever topic you're writing about, or an audience that is aware? And a lot of that, your audience will determine a lot of the details that you include. So you do need to be aware of who you're writing to. Also, your thesis statement in an argument is technically called an assertion. You're asserting something, you're asserting an idea. So it's still a topic, it's still a thesis statement, but it's argumentative in its nature. So your thesis statement needs to clearly state the stance that you're taking in the rest of your paper. And your topic sentences are the same way. So your thesis statement is going to be a general idea of, this is the truth, whatever it is you're writing about. And then each topic sentence you have still has to be argumentative, but those are the specific points that you're using to support your thesis statement, why your thesis statement is true. Okay, and then after that, you have to use support evidence and reasons to prove your topic sentence is correct, which will in turn prove your thesis statement to be correct. So there are two different types of sources, primary and secondary. Primary is things like a book, or sometimes an article. If you're analyzing an article that somebody else wrote, that would technically be a primary source in that case, because that's what you're arguing about. Or an interview. It's just that, it's that really basic material that you need in order to support yourself. So in this paper number 4, you're probably not really going to use primary sources. Not thinking of anything really quickly that you would want to use as a primary source for that. But secondary sources, yes. Secondary sources are any source that you use to support your thesis statement, such as outside research, which you'll be required to use for paper number 4. So that it's not really necessary that you understand the difference between primary and secondary right now. Because like I say, I don't think you're going to need anything that's a primary source for this one. If I were asking you to state an opinion about a piece of art, then yes, you would have a primary source, because that piece of art would be a primary source, but you're not doing anything like that. You're just going to provide a stance on a topic and then use secondary sources to support that. Also, you want to organize your paper effectively. How do you want to place your support and your evidence? How do you want to support, or how do you want to organize the main points that you're trying to make Do you want to start strong with your strongest point and end with your weakest or not? It depends on where you want to put things and how it's going to affect your reader, because you're trying to convince them that you're right. Very basically, it's kind of a preschool answer to what argument is, but that's at the core, it's what it is. You're trying to prove yourself right. So how you organize your paper can affect that. Also, you want to employ certain argumentative strategies, such as word choice. What kind of words do you want to use? Do you want to use emotional words? Do you want to use really strong language? Your word choice plays a huge role in argumentation. Also, think about counter-arguing or conceding. Counter-arguing is when you're arguing for something, but then you add a little perspective saying, well, I see why the other side believes this, but it's flawed in this way. That's counter-arguing. Conceding is pretty much the same thing. You're saying, well, this is what I think is true, even though this is true too, but what I think is still true. So it shows that you've got perspective, that you're able to see the different angles of an argument, because rarely does an argument have two sides, for and against. Rarely does that ever happen. Think about the issue of abortion. It's not just people who are for it and people who are against it. There are people who are against it but for it in certain ways, and people who are, I don't know if that makes much sense. To be more specific, say someone's against abortion except in the cases of rape or danger to the mom. Okay, then it's not just a clear-cut, yes, I agree with it, no, I don't agree with it. And again, rarely is an argument black and white like that. If you counter-argue and concede, it shows your reader that you're able to see that gray area. Also, you can include statistics and facts and all sorts of different kinds of evidence as an argumentative strategy. So you do have to have evidence, but the different types that you choose becomes one of the strategies that you can employ. Probably based on your audience and what they're going to want to see. So let's go over paper number 4. We'll review this information really fast, and then we'll go to the prompt. So the first thing I want to say about it is it's not your opinion. I don't want your opinion. I want fact. I want you to take a stance, but to keep yourself out of your paper. So here's some ways to plan before you write. And hopefully you'll just kind of do these step by step, because it will really help you out, I think. So I've chosen your topic. We'll get to that in a minute. But you have to choose your stance. Are you for it or against it? Why and why not? And so you have to have a thesis statement that clearly states the stance, but I don't want you to say I think or I believe. Now, I've harped on narration all quarter long, and maybe you're wondering why. Why can't you just let us narrate? Because it's a horrible, nasty habit. And if you don't think it is, I think, without exception, you're all still narrating. That's how big of a habit it is, and I'm trying to get you out of it. It's not that narration's bad. A narrative and a narrative essay is fine. A little personal anecdote or story in an argument is fine, but in my opinion, you're not there yet. I want you to learn how to write without including yourself. It's much harder, and if you can fully understand how to write without putting yourself in, those times where it's appropriate to put yourself in will be better. So I don't want your opinion in this paper. You can use your opinion as your starting point. Look at the topic and think, what do I believe? What's my opinion on this? And that's where you start. But I don't want your thesis statement to have anything to do with you and your opinion. I don't want your paper to have anything to do with you and your opinion. Keep yourself out. It's a much harder way to write, and it's going to challenge you more. That's why I do that. All right, after you get your stance and write out a working thesis statement that clearly defines your stance, think about what main points you're going to write about to support your stance, and that you need to turn into your topic sentences. Okay, this is when you're starting to grow that skeleton that we've talked about in past chapters. Okay, so nail down your topic sentences. After that, choose what evidence and support you want to use. That's where the body of your paragraphs are going to come from. Then think about how you want to organize it. How are you going to pull it all together? How are you going to transition things? What order is it going to go in? Very important. And then think about what creative elements you can add to engage your reader. We've talked about introductions and conclusions. How can you grab them with your argument? Because again, you may think that nobody's reading your essay, but if that's the way you want to write, then that's fine. You're not going to get any better if you don't imagine that somebody is actually going to read this besides me. You have to engage your reader. So think about how you can do that related to the topic. Okay, so let's go to the prompt itself. Okay, so here's the prompt. Purpose is to practice argumentation, blah, blah, blah. This is all pretty standard. You're going to turn it in twice, like always. First time I'll give you feedback. Second time you'll actually get a full grade. Make sure you have MLA. Make sure you're doing it properly. I think for the most part, people are still not doing it correctly. I've given you a video that shows you exactly how to do everything. So please watch it and please do it correctly. If your final paper does not meet that MLA standard, your grade is really going to suffer for it. So to me, it's a silly reason to get a lower grade. But what's different about this paper is that you need a works cited page because you're going to have an outside source. So I will help you with that separately, but you need a works cited page at the end of your paper with the source that you're using. So here's the assignment. It's just a 2-page paper, pretty quick. We're still just working on, the basics as opposed to making a longer paper, so that's okay. Here's the question you have to answer in your paper. Do you believe the national minimum wage should be increased to $10 an hour? Why or why not? This is where your stance and your thesis statement needs to come from. And again, this is why you can start with an opinion, but I don't want it in your paper. For example, I don't think there should be a minimum wage, but why? That why is where I would create my thesis statement. Okay, and I really want you to take some time to research and think this answer out. Initially, you might think, oh, well, it's great for people to have more money, but it's a lot more complicated than that. Think about the competition for high school students who want a job at someplace like McDonald's, or a working father who has 3 kids to feed and a wife at home. This is an extremely complex issue. And if you don't know your stance right away, and if you don't have strong enough support, do your research. And through your reading, you'll be enlightened as to some different things. Think about local businesses. But again, you must take some time to think before you just dive in. The other thing is that you have to have a credible source anyway, whether it be a magazine, a newspaper. I don't want online blogs and that kind of crap. If it has a .com to it, more than likely I don't want it in your paper. And if you don't have a credible source that I deem credible, your paper's going to fail. So if you want to run by a source by me, that is perfectly fine. I'm more than happy to look at it for you. But it either needs to be a .org or a .edu. It needs to be a very credible source. Okay, so make sure you pick a source that's credible. Oh, and if you need help looking for stuff, Washington State is currently looking at this specifically in Seattle. So you can start there if you can't find anything else. And if you can't find anything, let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you, but you do need to start researching on your own and let me know if you need help somewhere in particular. So begin planning, blah, blah, blah. Don't need to cover all that, I don't think. Your audience is someone who's interested in what you have to say. So it's not that they're going to be disagreeable with you, but you still need to give good detail and support in explaining your stance. Pretend you're having a discussion with a friend and they say, how do you feel about this issue? Granted, I don't want you to write like you're talking to a friend, but you just present your information, say, here's my stance, here's why. There you go. Okay. And then at the end, assessment's the same as before. Here's your response sheet, essentially the same. Make sure it's 2 pages long. Make sure it fulfills the assignment outlined in the prompt, and make sure you have a credible source. And then read through the rest of the response sheet to see what else I'm looking for. So if you have any questions, let me know.